Welcome back to the Goonerverse podcast, everyone. We've got to get the apologies out early. I'm doing this off a hotspot. I'm on the other side of the world. The internet might not be holding out best, but as long as you can hear me, that's the important thing, which Sharoy says he can. As long as you can see Sharoy, because he's a much better looking version of the both of us. So, that's the important thing. And we can see. How are you, Sharoy?
I'm good. Have you seen what Alex has done to your podcast? You're gone for 1 week, mate. You're gone for 1 week, and he's replaced you with Laura Kurt Francis. But when you're not available, I don't go and do a podcast with someone else. Or when I'm not available, you don't go and do a podcast with someone. I just wanted to put that out there, just in case anyone was questioning my loyalty, your loyalty. That I think that speaks volumes. But yeah, I'm good, bro. I'm good. How's Sydney?
Yeah, you're right. You're right to bring that up, and I'll be having words with him. I'm the only one who can cheat on you with him. Like he can't be. That's not how this works. So
Correct.
yeah,
Right.
I'll bring that
I
up.
think it's what they called one-way monogamy on the manosphere or something like that, wasn't it? A strange concept. Very strange concept.
Yeah, something like that. Also, why did you have to get such a good guess? Like you only went and got Laura's unbelievable guess. Like
I haven't checked the comments yet because I haven't had time to watch it, but I probably will, and I'm hoping that people stay true to you. But I do worry that there might be calls for it to be a three-person pod going forward.
I've been replaced, but there we go. Sharoy, you have not been replaced. This podcast has not. Here we are. But sorry, we're all joking. Love to Alex as always, and I'll be back on the knockabout when we're both back from all our various travels because he's going away a lot too. Sharoy, it's 6:30 in the morning in Sydney. You asked how it was. It's great. If I'm being really honest, it's my favorite place in the world. Genuinely, I think it's such an amazing city. I'm here because of my partner's work, so I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to fly out and be here with her. But it's great. Have you ever been here?
Not once, man. Not one. I've got cousins that live out there. Actually, hold on. I think they might be in Melbourne. That's terrible of me. But they're in Australia. I need to go and visit them. How long's the flight?
21, 22 hours.
Yeah, I think that's why I haven't done it, mate. I think it's definitely worth it from what everyone tells me, though.
So on this, I know it's kind of easy to say when you're in the high of travels or whatever, but genuinely, the journey is not that bad. And the way you have to look at it is, A, you got to time it nicely. So don't get a lot of sleep before because you're going to want to be tired on the plane. Secondly, just download content, bring snacks. More often than not, these flights, I went with Singapore Airlines and I've done Emirates before. That was last time. They've got like live TV. I was watching Man United Brentford on the flight and they're, and actually the food's all right. And, you download enough content and they'll have loads of movies, pretty much any movie you could want or TV show. So you just you do that first 14 hours, you sleep as much as you can, you keep yourself entertained. By the time you've landed, you've done your kind of 90-minute layover, got onto the other plane, that last 7 hours just flies by. So, and then you're just sleeping where you can, because when you're in the air for 21 hours, naturally at some point you should have got 8 hours sleep in there and your body just kind of finds the time. And honestly, I don't have to explain, I've done it 3 times now, there, back and there again. And no time have I ever thought, oh my God, this is really dragged. It's kind of, you do any long haul, it feels long haul. I really recommend it, genuinely. I think it's slightly overblown, like how difficult it is to do the journey, personally.
I mean, you sold it, but you did also say, oh, and that last 7 hours, that 7 hours flies by. I was like, for 7 hours, mate. It's like 7 hours. How much content did you download?
No, but I slept most of that one. But it flies by in the sense of you've just done 14 hours. So that last 7-hour flight feels like a 3-hour flight. I don't know how to explain it. Your mind is really warped. You then are just like, yeah, I'm comfy. I'm quite accustomed to being on a plane now. And, like I said, at some point you've got the hours of sleeping, you've eaten some food, you've watched a movie or two and you're there. Honestly, it's really, because I think that's the big thing that puts people off going is it's just so long in the air. It's so far to travel. I can't stress how worth it is. Really genuine. I think it's such an amazing country and city.
Have you linked up with any Australian Gooners out there yet? Or is that for later in the trip?
So I went to, there's a bar called Cheers Bar. It's a 24-hour sports bar. So they are through the night. They have all the kind of, sports, whatever time it's going on. And I was there last year for the Man United Arsenal 1-1 draw when Declan Rice equalised. And I was there for the Atleti game as well. and I'll probably be there for next week's Atletico game as well. Probably not this week's Fulham, but yeah, for the Atleti one next week. And yeah, I mean, lovely people coming up and sort of introducing themselves, and just meeting other Arsenal fans there in general. Saw an old school friend as well who happened to be there, and he'd actually messaged, but I'd forgot to kind of go through my messages, and then I saw him. I was like, oh my god, his name's Sam. I was like, I haven't seen you in like 10 years, because he'd moved out there, and he's a big Arsenal fan. Happened to be in that bar watching it too. So yeah, it's really good. I mean, the Arsenal fans, I have to say, the only reason I've been able to do these. This is my third morning here. I've woken up at 4 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. The only reason I've been able to is because of jet lag. But yeah, it helps. So, but shout out to the Australian Arsenal fans who are getting up at stupid o'clock every time on a work day to catch the Arsenal before they go off and, work a 9 to 5 or whatever. I mean, genuinely, they've really got my admiration. I mean, I'm struggling and I've got jet lag to help me. Like, I've been naturally waking up at 4 a.m. And then I get later in the day and I'm sort of shattered. I don't know how they do it. So really fair play to the Arsenal fans who are making it work.
It's not just that, man. I mean, all the midweek games are in the evening, and all the weekend games are obviously the weekend, right? So I'm not working. I can't imagine getting up before work, having a result that has altered my mood, and then having to go to work same day and just block it out. There are some games where it takes me a few hours to sort of simmer down and compose myself and gather my thoughts. These men are waking up at 4 a.m. and getting straight to the office. So credit to them, man. That's why I've never really understood why anyone questions fans from other countries. If anything, they demonstrate a hell of a lot of dedication in ways that we don't even have to.
I couldn't agree more, Sharoy. Like, I'm not saying it's easy to get to the Emirates. You've got to pay an absolute fortune. It's so difficult to get tickets at the moment. And you are showing your support in a very visible, kind of public way, in a way that's kind of very directly coming through to the players. But it is evenings. They're very rarely, football's very rarely being played at a time where you're working. Obviously, it depends when you work. I mean, trust me, as content creators, I very much know that, 9 to 5 isn't everyone. And also it's weekends. And some people put in hours to get to the Emirates for a game. Some people fly over and put hours to get to the Emirates for a game. But these people, just to follow a 50, 60 game season, are getting up at stupid hours to watch. Like, there isn't a sensible kickoff time. Yeah. I think the best you get is when there's an 11-hour difference. If Arsenal play at 8 p.m., they can watch the game at 7 a.m., but again, 7 a.m., so it's not ideal. And if there's a 12:30 p.m. kickoff, they can watch that at 11:30. So 12:30 midday, so they're watching at 11:30 p.m. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's far from ideal. So really, they've got my utmost respect.
All right, you sold it, man. You've sold it. I'll book a flight at some point. Should we talk football?
Shall we talk football? I'm going to give you the opportunity to start. Do you want to talk about Bayern PSG first or Arsenal Atleti first? I think they're linked. I think my thoughts on both games kind of connect to one another. I would really love your take on both.
It's not just the thoughts on both games. Even in my WhatsApp groups, when the Bayern game was on, a lot of the messages I was getting were about, oh my God, what are we going to have to watch tomorrow? All of X and all of Instagram, and maybe it's my algorithm, I don't know. But yeah, we're seeing these beautiful goals, and then there's pictures of Mikel Arteta and Diego Simeone dressed as people that are on sort of prescribed wanted lists in different countries, implying that they do something untoward with football, all over my algorithm. And I'm just sat there thinking, in Simeone, you're really talking about one of the best managers we've seen in La Liga in my adult life. And in Arteta, I'm sort of sat there thinking, I understand what people are saying about the football this year, but I then watched that game and I thought, well, please don't let the preconceptions about the managers and all the jokes taint the way in which you watch the game, because I thought that both sides actually played some really, really good, intricate one-touch football throughout that game, right? And I'm not, look, you know who I have to win the Champions League, and in all honesty, I don't think that's changed, even though they're behind at the moment. I still do think Bayern are going to turn it around. But I've always felt that way because of the ridiculous attacking quality that they have, right? I think you said that even when it got to 5-2 or whatever, you never really thought that Bayern were out of it. I couldn't help but I messaged in the group and I said, look, I could sit here and talk about the defending in the Bayern game. And I did do that actually. But I sat there and I thought, okay, if we were at home, if we were PSG and we went 3 goals up in any game, let alone a Champions League knockout game, and we did whatever happened to keep the opposition in it and to keep that tie alive. Can you imagine the media furor and the it would be bottle jobs all over again, right? And I understand the difference in the clubs and what they've achieved or whatever, but let's look at it in isolation. It would be absolute Arsenal, what have you done? That's a calamity. In fact, a lot of people are saying, well, you're 1-0 up and you probably should have won last night, and now it's 1-0. You haven't made it easy for yourselves, right? The way in which people analyze football because of preconceptions, because of narratives, because of all the content that they've taken in, I think it's bizarre, because I was sat there thinking, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but I was sat there thinking,
No.
I don't think I'd be happy if I were a fan of either club in that situation. I would have thought that we could have done a lot better to put the tie to bed, which is why I was glad that I heard, I think it was Rooney and Seedorf on the platform that they were on, describing it in the same way, because a lot of people hear people like us talk about it and they go, shut up. Sometimes you need an actual footballer with that level of career to say it. There were other footballers that said very different things, but it's good to know that some of the best professionals in the game also looked at it that way. Having said all of that, the attacking football was effing incredible. It was absolutely incredible. That was a very long-winded way of me saying I enjoyed both games, mate.
No, I completely agree with you. I think you're touching on all the right things, and we're definitely going to go into it. Before we do, though, we have to tell you about the amazing NordVPN, who are back. As I'm telling you about this, is my internet coming through okay, Shroy?
Clean.
Well, there we go. And who have I been using while I've been out here?
NordVPN, no doubt.
Of course I have. Of course I have. How do you think I've been keeping up with it all? Obviously, the Arsenal game I watched in a bar and I enjoyed that, but I was up at stupid o'clock and I was enjoying the Champions League because it was absolutely class. I wouldn't have missed it. And yeah, you all know how I'm doing that. But I just want to shout out to the amazing NordVPN. As you can see there, if you go to nordvpn.com/the Goonerverse, you can try it risk-free now and get a 30-day money-back guarantee if it's not for you. But trust me, it's going to be for you. What are they? They're a virtual private network. I've been using them out here while I'm here in Australia for content, for sports content. I've been watching Married at First Sight, which is funny enough the Australian version, but I'm actually watching it back in England, so I'm watching it via. Anyway, it's a great show. Recommend it all. But virtual private network essentially means that you can open a world of content around the world or watch the content that you love to enjoy at home when you travel abroad, which is exactly what I am doing right now. It also protects you on things like public Wi-Fi, so it helps you not get hacked, essentially, and a whole host of benefits. But that's kind of a big one for me, because when you're going abroad, maybe you're connecting to various Wi-Fis or whatever, I've seen people get hacked, and it sort of puts a lot of, I don't know, security things in place to ensure that can't happen. So yeah, protect your private data like bank details, passwords, online identity. Protect your data while you're traveling using public Wi-Fi. You're essentially getting premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month. And obviously, when you do have one NordVPN account, that can be used up to 10 devices. So I've been lucky enough to use it here on my iPad when I'm consuming content, or on my phone when I'm going out and about. But I'm literally using it right here as we speak. It's absolutely. My iPad right here. You should see in the very top corner. Let's see a little VPN sign. There we go.
It came through. It came through.
It's turned on right now. So there we go. Shout out to NordVPN. Honestly, I cannot recommend them enough. They're absolutely brilliant, and I'm using them now on my travels. And like I said, the link is in the description below. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Goonerverse. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan, and there's no risk, because with the 30-day money-back guarantee, you can obviously, if it's not for you, then it's not for you. That's fine. But the link is in the podcast and YouTube description below. Big thanks to Nord, as always. And I've really enjoyed doing that and delivering it while actually using it. It's great. So there we go. Pick up to Nord, as always. Sure, let's pick back up where. No, you were going to say something. Were you going to pick up Nord?
Only because you know how every time you do this, I go, oh, by the way, like when you watch YouTube on your phone, you can change your location to another country and close it in the background. You can change it to the US. So someone in the comments went, bro, have you not found the other one? If you change your country to Albania on NordVPN, you can get rid of ads as well. So you can watch a whole video continuously. I was like, what? They don't have ads in Albania. It's got to be a lie. And I did it, and I watched a video clean through. So it gives you functionality for a number of things that you otherwise wouldn't get in the UK. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
Very, very interesting. But also, guys, please don't do that, because I need the ad revenue here on YouTube. So maybe do it for the other vids.
Apologies. That's how you know that I'm not a full-time content creator. I'm literally just a punter.
Come on, Troy. Think about the business.
Sorry.
Get the business head there. Come on. Right, back to it. The semi-finals. I think you summed up that game against PSG and Bayern really well. I suppose I'd say, and look, Arsenal fans have got a lot of heat online for probably a lot of things. a lot of the takes from some Arsenal fans were speaking about the defending side of things, and some accounts went, I suppose got a screenshot or quote tweeted because of it. And then obviously we were playing in the other second leg, which wasn't expected to be a pretty one, which you've alluded to. I think you can say this. It was a great game of football. It was an entertaining game of football, but it probably wasn't peak football from either team. And I think what we mean by that, and let me not just sit here as an Arsenal fan and go, well, the defending wasn't great. It wasn't. I think we all agree. How much were the defenses made to not look great because of the attacking quality? I mean, you could say that. But I don't think, for example, the level of that game was as high for me personally as the level of when Klopp and Guardiola's Man City and Liverpool side went blow for blow. And often it ended 2-2. Now, I'm not saying that those were better games of football. They weren't. I mean, there was 9 goals versus 4 goals. But like Van Dijk, John Stones, Laporte, like they stood up in those games too, and they were a big part of it. We were talking about the fullbacks. We were talking about the sixes as much as we were talking about the attacking flair on display. And you'd still get Mo Salah dancing through a Man City team and squeezing it from the tightest of angles. So you had that sense of individual quality coming through. When I talk about the best to ever do it in terms of club sides, the City Centurions, the City treble winners, Liverpool from 2019 to 2022, albeit they had a few blips in those seasons. Trying to think of other teams. I dare say Conte's Chelsea, but we only really saw 1 year of it. Bayern Munich in 2013-14, I think, when they were unbelievable side, even when they won it in 2020. Barcelona under Pep Guardiola, the three-peat Champions League Real Madrid sides. For me, they're all better sides than this PSG and this Bayern side. Now, this PSG side are pushing it. I am kind of like, I put them in the conversation. They're up there with one of the great sides that I've seen, but I think these other sides are better. And I think because I think these other sides are better, sorry, let me rephrase. The reason I think these other sides are better, I didn't think they were, we never spoke about them defensively and said, yeah, you're great going forward, but defensively you look a bit messy. PSG have looked messy defensively. Like in the games I've watched in the Champions League, they went life and death with Villa last year. We didn't have a striker, and I think we left a few goals on the pitch against them. This game against Bayern Munich, I think, tells you a lot too. Who else? I think Monaco as well caused them loads of problems in the qualifying round. 2 years in a row, they didn't make it into the top 8. They had to go through a qualifying phase to get there, whilst playing in a respectfully easier league, in terms of, look at the minutes they've clocked up and whatever. So anyway, all this to say, it sounds like I'm really trying to put down Bayern and PSG. I'm not. That game of football was unbelievable, absolutely amazing to watch. And the game really, really needed that. And I was so praising of them in my match reaction because I think it was important. But talking about it here on an Arsenal podcast through a different lens, I definitely have thought to myself, I've seen better, more complete sides that still played great football. And I'm not sure Bayern or PSG are those. But I think PSG are, I think they're pretty special because you got to think they won it last year. Is that a fair reflection while I go top up my water, Shroy?
Yeah, completely. And I mean, you've mentioned a load of teams there, right? But anyone who's my age, maybe not your age, I don't know how much of this team you saw, but when you're talking about some of the great Arsenal teams, particularly the Invincibles, everyone talks about Henry, everyone talks about Bergkamp, everyone talks about Pires, everyone talks about Ljungberg, everyone talks about Vieira, some of the silky football that those teams played, even the sort of the iteration after that with players like Reyes, there were loads of them. But Sol Campbell always gets spoken about. Ashley Cole always gets spoken about. People that watch that team also speak about Lauren, speak about Toure. You've got Adams before. I mean, you've got a defense that in isolation, standalone on its merit, is looked at as one of the titans of defensive lines, but it's also a team that's renowned for its attacking football and the way in which it revolutionized certain positions and caught the eye and changed the way that people wanted to play, to the extent that even now, I think one of the reasons that people are so aggrieved about the way in which we go forward now is because people think that is Arsenal. That old Arsenal is the Arsenal way, and they struggle to come to terms with it. So that's what I was trying to articulate in some of my WhatsApp groups. But obviously, you're not going to get any attention in a WhatsApp group when you're trying to make that point, right? But that's what I meant. That's not to take away at all. I think I'd go as far. A lot of people say, no, this is elite football. This is football. I'd say just add one word in there. It's elite attacking football. It is
Yes.
elite attacking football, without a shadow of a doubt. But when you're talking about football, there's more to it than just attacking, right? People are going to say that I've been brainwashed by Arteta now, but it's the truth. I think there is a happy medium and there is a balance. Go back to what we were discussing about what Simeone said before, right? The team that attacks the best often defends the worst, and I understand that, but I don't think the defensive drop off has to be quite what it is. One of my very good friends in a group responded to me when I said all of this, and he said, "When you're that good at attack, you genuinely believe that regardless of how shit your defense is, you will outscore your opponent. And when you have that much talent, the way that Arteta sets up and plays to the strengths of his squad, which he has assembled, he knows that he doesn't quite have the attacking talent to go and do that. And we would lose a lot of games if he tried to do that. But he probably does have the defense and, in my opinion, a defensive-ish midfield to make that the platform instead. So he's chosen the best way for him to win. But when you look at the makeup of that Bayern side and that PSG side, by design, not by chance, by design, they think that's the best way to win. And it just so happens you now have two teams that think the best way for them to win is to go and try and outscore the opponent. It makes for great viewing.
It does. It makes for great viewing. Now, if you haven't watched my match reaction, which is out on Goonerverse News, a reminder to all that Goonerverse News is rebranding to Football First. So hence you'll see more football content coming. Everything that's on Goonerverse News that's Arsenal rated will still be going out on the Goonerverse, so don't worry about that. But when I did put that video out, and I was very praising the attacking football, it was because when you're so invigorated and you're so kind of inspired by what you just watched, that has to be what you lead with. So anyone who's watching this and getting my thoughts on that tie for the first time, please don't think for 1 second that I was sort of watching it kind of with my Tactico glasses on going, well, actually, really, if they did, it was just a great game of football and I want to be entertained. And that's all I care about. When I'm talking about other teams, when I'm talking about Arsenal, we look at it through a different lens. However, let's talk about it from an Arsenal perspective. That exact game, PSG Bayern, it taught me something, Shroy. For anyone who does feel like I've got a slightly negative spin on that tie, which I think it was amazing, it taught me I need to really raise my standards for this team. That's the one thing. Like, as much as, and I've spoken about where they fall short in different ways, these two sides in particular, but it really shone a light on where we fall short massively, more than ever. I did watch that and think, I need to stop. I put player ratings out. on the Goonerverse. I don't know if you caught it. And, I have my different tiers. And I didn't put Declan Rice in the brilliant tier. And I didn't put Zubimendi in the very good tier. And they were two players that got a lot of praise for their performances. And I just thought, I can't watch Zaire Emery, Vitinha, Pavlovic, like all these players. And by the way, I'm not saying they were all brilliant that night, but these midfielders kind of look so silky and neat and inventive on the ball. I can't watch Harry Kane sort of play the way he did and then say like, oh, Gyökeres had a brilliant game for us. I just can't do it. Like, and not the night after. Like, when you have a what they call sorbet, it's a palate cleanser, right?
Yeah,
It's almost like I've had a complete palate cleanse. I've had this big old sorbet before watching our football, and I'm tasting what we're doing with through a different lens, with a different perspective. That was a big takeaway for me, Shiroi.
Yeah, I think a lot of Arsenal fans will have felt the same. There were times where I was watching that Bayern PSG game, and I was looking at what some of their wingers were doing. I mean, you can talk about the Harry Kane pass to Diaz, for example, and I was sat there thinking, after the Arsenal match, I was like, you can't honestly say that one of your key takeaways about Madueke's performance was that he cut inside once and hit a shot wide. But that was one of the better moments, right? And that's where a lot of people, when they're analysing
exactly,
will go, "Oh, boy, he did that," and it's 6 inches the other way, and that might have gone in. And I'm sort of like, is that there's a completely different standard. Having said all of that, there is a lot to be said about the players being given license to do certain things and the way in which they're coached in terms of the way that they approach games, right? Because there's a lot. People might laugh at me for saying this, right? There's a lot that Eze did on the pitch for us that I thought was of an equivalent standard to some of the stuff that I saw the night before. There's a bit on the halfway line where he does.
Thank you.
By the way, I'm just telling you now because it's happening. The internet's going a little bit. I don't know if you changed anything at your end, but I'm going to carry on anyway. It sounds coming out fine. But there was a bit on the halfway line where I think he has two men around him, and he does like a little turn, 2-3 touches, creates a bunch of space, pings off a pass, and I'm thinking that would have been doing the rounds if that happened with those teams, but it's not, because it's happening in an Arsenal team that isn't associated with that kind of football. So it's not a clip that's going around. There were and again, people might laugh when I say this. I personally think that if you put Martin Odegaard in a team like that PSG side that sets up like that PSG side, or even that Bayern Munich side, I think he then gets spoken about as one of the better attacking midfielders in the world. I know a lot of people have given up on him, but I think if he was being coached and told to do that week in, week out, and he was therefore trying to do that week in, week out on the pitch and play that style of football, I think you'd see something more akin to the guy that we thought we signed, the guy that we did sign for at least a year, if not a little bit more, not the guy that everyone remembers now. It's muscle memory, right? I just don't think we're set up to play that way. And the same could be said for a few players. Who knows? What does Martinelli look like in a team like that? There are a number of players where I sit there and I go, let's see. I nearly knocked my entire. No, all right, okay. I nearly knocked the actual laptop and the webcam off. Okay, we're good. But there are a lot of players.
This podcast is fighting for dear life.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame because I think we're making some half decent points for once. But yeah, it's I think there's a lot to be said for coaching and the sort of regiment that these players are in.
100%. And when I look at the way like the PSG midfield move, like Neves, Vitinha, Zaire Emery, Musiala in the 10, Musiala wasn't sort of seen to have had a particularly great game, and I thought he did some brilliant stuff because we're conditioned to see so much less in the 10 spot. But you're right about Eze. Eze was someone who, watching him in that 10, I thought, when he came on, I thought, my God, he's got the kind of guile and freedom, and he looked like he belonged in the game the night before, not necessarily the game we watched. I do disagree with people who said Arsenal Atleti was a great game. I didn't think it was a great game. I think it was just better than maybe people thought it was going to be. But I didn't think it was like a great game of football. I thought it was just quite an intense game of football, and I thought it was quite a tactically interesting game of football. I thought Arsenal can come away with a lot of credit, a lot of positives for me, for sure. But again, when I say about raising the standard, we're saying Gyökeres had a good game because his hold up was decent. He ran down the channel and cut it to Odegaard. And look, by Gyökeres' standards and where he's been, absolutely that was a good performance. But I just think at the moment, I'm not trying to shit on the players. I just think we need to try and get to the end of the season, just fight tooth and nail for everything. 5-6 games left, whatever it is now. Just try get it done. But then I think in the summer, it really is time to not just change the way Arteta tactically sets up his team, platforms players, but we need to start like really raising the expectation. And that comes through a few things. Sometimes it's tactical tweaks. For example, Rice in the 6 with Zubimendi sort of a more floating role. I actually really like that. I think immediately with 2 advanced 8s and Odegaard and Zubimendi and Rice at the 6, it's just a tweak of position. But I think it actually adds a lot for us. I also tweeted that, I was replying to someone who was saying, ultimately maybe the quality of players in the Premier League just isn't as good as we saw from PSG and Bayern. And again, I sort of respectfully, because I agreed with the point to a degree, but I pushed back on, how highly rated was Luis Diaz when he left Liverpool? I do not remember Liverpool fans feeling frustrated that he was going. I remember them going, wow, unbelievable sale, great money. Yeah, like no problem. Let's replenish and go again. Elise, when he shared a Palace team with Eze, albeit I think he's a bit younger, he was not talked about as sort of significantly better. Maybe he was seen because he was younger or whatever as the one who could make the next step up. But they were playing at very much a similar level to me at Palace. Harry Kane at Tottenham was brilliant, but how many times do we talk about not doing it in finals or maybe in this big game struggling? And by the way, it was all nonsense. He was always a brilliant player. But then when he got close to the records, we started to put him in conversations. And I'm just saying that it's so interesting. Dembele was written off too when he left Barcelona. I think environment, platforming, coaching, and just minutes managed, all these things probably play a bigger part than ever before. And I just wonder how many attackers around the Premier League could go abroad to maybe German or French football, and with the right coach and just in the right environment would look world beaters. And for me, the one player I look at in our team that I think, nah, if he went somewhere else, no, the 2, if they were playing in another league right now, that I think they would really rise the ranks in terms of how they're viewed. For me, it's Odegaard. And he's already kind of seen up there, but Bukayo Saka, I think, would look unbelievable. So they're my 2. I don't know if you have any at Arsenal that you think. Eze, I think, is showing his quality anyway.
I think I'd agree with you. I'd probably have to give it a bit more thought to come up with others. I know I mentioned Martinelli earlier, and people will probably have a problem with that because of the fact that they'll say that he can't finish. But I do think that when he's got a hell of a lot more space in front of him, and he's given the freedom to just dart basically, as opposed to sort of recycle the ball. I think he could be a bit more potent too. I mean, taking your point one step further about the players that go away and suddenly they look like world beaters. The equivalent point could be made for players that look like world beaters, but then come to the Premier League and you think, oh God, what's happened there, right? I mean, a lot of, and we can use Zubimendi as a case study. And I'm not saying that I look at Zubimendi and I go, oh God, what's happened there? But when I watched him, I wouldn't say that I watched him week in, week out, but I watched him a fair bit. If you listen to the way that Liverpool fans spoke about him before he came, there were elements to his game that we just haven't seen at Arsenal. And my argument there, fatigue and game time aside, even from the beginning of the season, is this league just does not permit certain facets of people's games. It just doesn't. So you have to adapt, and you have to find another way to influence the game, and you have to find another way to look good. And he has done that in moments. I think for someone that's coming along in what is a very, very difficult position where you're expected to ultimately dictate tempo and dictate play, I think as a first season for a body of work, I don't like the criticism that he's getting. In all honesty, I understand a lot of it, but the criticism that I would deliver is in my opinion largely due to, aside from certain mistakes that he's made, I think in terms of his style of play, due to circumstances beyond his control. I think this is very much a season where he does adapt, and then he settles in, and then suddenly he finds that other way, and he hones his craft the way he did abroad. And there are loads of other examples, but I just wanted to use that one in particular because I've noticed that the discourse about him has changed slightly this year, and I think it's gone a bit too far the other way for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Zubimendi, sorry, you're right to bring him up. He's probably the third player that I think if you put, in a different environment, different circumstances, different coaching, whatever, I think would go up levels. I think that too. I think he showed some of that quality in the pass to Gyökeres, the 1-2 the Odegaard pass to Gyökeres that ends up winning us the penalty. I think it's worth looking ahead to the rest of the week. I don't think there's kind of much more to get into in that game, unless you kind of had strong thoughts on some of the controversial decisions. But
everyone has spoken about it to death. I think everyone who knows me knows where I stand on that. Don't worry about it. Let's look at the week. It's a big one.
Fair enough. Yeah, let's have a look at the week. So worth also saying that Rice is potentially going to be punished by UEFA. I'll just react to that on Goonerverse News when we hear what that's about. But we're not talking potential game ban, are they? They're talking hopefully fines, right?
Look, I haven't fact checked the source, but I did read potential ban. I did read potential. I'm not going to delve into this too much because I've just looked at the time and thought, oh my God, but I did read the comments, and he wasn't suggesting that anyone had been paid off. He wasn't suggesting that there was any corruption. I think he just said the fans were a bit loud, and that I think influenced the ref. I don't really see how that warrants even a fine, in my opinion, because that was immediately apparent. I mean, you're maybe questioning the integrity of the ref, but then in terms of the quality of the decision. But I mean, everyone did that post-match, including the people that were on air. I mean, he hasn't said anything that anyone else hasn't, including our manager, frankly.
I think I actually have to say that I think it was quite a stupid thing for Rice to say. I
agree he didn't have to say it, but I don't think it's egregious enough for a ban.
No, not for a ban. I think for a fine and a slap on the wrist. But I think I even heard the TNT commentator saying, if that decision were for the home side, they wouldn't overturn it. And I thought, these are quite big statements. Maybe I'm really sensitive, but I thought, by the way, I agree. Let me say, I wholeheartedly agree. I think he wouldn't have overturned that for Atleti, and he shouldn't have overturned it for us. I do think he absolutely was sort of, I don't know. I think there was a sense of like, you got it. Yeah, the pressure is so high. Are you so sure it's a penalty that you're going to kind of give it? Worth saying that people would have told him to go to the monitor and have a look who weren't in the stadium. That's also worth saying. But I don't think you should be coming out and basically saying that I think the referee bottled it. I think the referee wanted to give a penalty but actually didn't because he was swayed. I don't think that was a clever thing for Declan Rice to say, if I'm honest. So hopefully it's just a little slap on the wrist and whatever. But if he's not playing the next game, that'd be an absolute joke. You've had it in it for us a little bit.
Yeah, these things can go one way or the other, though, right? Playing devil's advocate, which everyone knows I love to do. Like some of the best managers and some of the best players in the world have come out and done this sort of thing, and it has influenced the decision making going forward in games. Right, there are certain things that then suddenly go their way because that applies pressure. And I don't need to name names on this podcast, but there are a couple that play for Man City right now that have done that, and things have changed for 4 or 5 games going forward. So that might be another sort of leader's tactic to say this absolutely hasn't gone our way. We're all pissed off. I'm going to call it out, and I'm going to make sure that when you lot are at the Emirates, you're under the spotlight. And sometimes, whether it's subconscious, whether it's intentional, referees do try and remedy previous mistakes sometimes because they feel the heat. They're human too. Clive tweeted and said we're in the washing machine for like a 15, 20-minute period, and I felt exactly the same. And I felt the ref was in the washing machine for that entire time.
Yeah, very, very, very fair point. And you're right. I agree with what you were saying about are you maybe putting pressure on for future games, for the second leg and things like that. So yeah, very fair. All right, well, I think we can look ahead to what's to come. Arsenal versus Fulham, Everton versus Man City, Arsenal versus Atletico. It's not hyperbolic to say that it's potentially, and when I say potential, let's make it very clear. Arsenal have made absolute dog's dinner out of all our games at the Emirates more recently. Man City are in great form. Everton just lost at West Ham, and Atleti have reached finals, in the Champions League twice more recently than we have. That's the padding. That's the yes. However, there's a very real world in which Arsenal win their next 2 home games, either side of Man City, hopefully dropping points at the Hill Dickinson, and Arsenal taking control of the title race again and being in the final of the Champions League with 3 games to go and a final to play. Sharoy, this is a defining week in Arsenal season. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say. This is an absolutely defining week.
It's not hyperbolic to say. I think players know that. I think the manager knows that. I think the fans know that. Problem is, I think our opponents know that. And if there's one thing that opponents, I'd say maybe before, but certainly post Bournemouth, will want to do is take advantage of that atmosphere, take advantage of those nerves, and really, really see. I think the best way to go about it if you're an opponent now against Arsenal is don't let Arsenal do what Arsenal did last night. Get the ball on the deck, start playing, build up a bit of confidence, build up silence a crowd. I think if a team comes out, that's why I was surprised that Atleti didn't go for the jugular early. Actually, I thought they would have picked up on the potential fragility given the way the season's panning out, or looks like it's panning out. That's why it's defining, because I think that Fulham are playing with, forgive me if I've got this wrong, but relatively no pressure at the moment. I don't think they're aspiring. They're not going down. They're not aspiring for anything in particular.
I think they got a sneak look at Europe. Let me carry on. Let me have a little.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I should have looked at that before I made the point, but just from memory, I don't think they do. So
I think you are right. But I'll double check it.
They can come and play shackles off, right? And when the Newcastle game, I was sat there going, you know what, sun's out. It's Saturday. It's 5:30. All of that. Oh, what's that look on your face? What's going on?
Mate, they're 10th on 48 points.
Yeah.
And Brighton are 6th on 50.
Okay, and so it's a huge cluster.
As things stand, so I found this out recently. Please, someone correct me in the comments if I've got this wrong, but I'm very convinced I heard this.
If Villa win the Europa League.
If Villa win the Europa League but finish 5th, then 6th will get Champions League football.
I think that's right.
But I think if they finish 4th and win the Europa League, then it doesn't go to the 6th spot, because the 5th spot was always like a gifted, earned one for the league. So basically, you can't give it to a team that's... So basically, the top 4 make it. That's it. Now, because English football has performed well in Europe, we've been gifted that 5th spot. But if you've already been gifted it because you've won the Europa League, then the gift passes down to 6th. And at the moment, Brighton on 50, Bournemouth on 49, Chelsea on 48, Brentford on 48, Fulham on 48, Everton on 47, and Sunderland on 46 will all be eyeing up a potential 6th spot, because Villa sit 5th behind Liverpool and are in the Europa League semi-final. Mate.
Okay, it's an outside chance. It's an outside chance.
Wow.
And there are a lot of ifs and buts.
It's a chance, though. It's a legit chance.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Man.
I hear you. But
what a season. What a season.
And if you look at the names you just read out, man. I mean, Sunderland is in that list, and they were a team that was tipped to sort of go down at one point, right? You've got Brentford in there. That I remember when they came up not too long ago, their manager described them as just a bus stop in Hounslow, right? In the Ivan Toney days. And now look at them; they're sitting there talking about Europe. It's incredible. And I could digress into a whole conversation about the league again. I'm not going to.
Well, Forest just beat Villa 1-0, by the way.
Okay.
in the first leg. But yeah, interesting.
There you go. And Forest, I think, scored 4 last week. It's mad, bro. And we couldn't put one past them. How things change. It's all. This is all why I'm nervous, mate. This is all why I'm nervous. I think the best thing that can happen. Sorry, I was talking about Newcastle. I thought that everything was in our favour when it came to Newcastle, because I looked at the time of the fixture, I look at the weather, I look at the scenario, I looked at how clear the assignment was. I think it was the first time that we'd had a week off or whatever. Right? I looked at the early goal, I looked at all of that, and the game still didn't pan out the way that I thought it was going to. Which it goes back to what I was discussing last week, and I think you guys touched on the loose cannons. I'm still not in that camp of we need to go out there and score a bunch of goals. I'm currently still in that camp of just win. Just get the 6-point lead, just apply the scoreboard pressure, and then whatever will be at the Hill Dickinson. But you need to know that you have done your job before that, because I guarantee you, if Arsenal drop points in that game, City react and City win. If Arsenal, and I say that without a shadow of a doubt. People will say you don't look into the future. Mate, I'm telling you, if we drop points, City will not drop points in that game. They just won't, not in this form. But if there's a 6-point gap, they'll know they've got 2 games in hand, but whenever we were ahead or whenever games in hand were a factor for us, everyone always used to say to me, points on the board are better than games in hand. And it's very, very true. I think Everton were actually in the list that you just read out too, right? I think you mentioned Everton as well. So it's not like they have nothing to play for. And having just, I mean, I think the Merseyside derby will have absolutely stung them, the way in which they lost that. I think it was West Ham that beat them, if I'm not mistaken. They need a reaction too. They need a reaction too in front of their fans. So it's not hyperbolic for you to suggest, 1, that it's a defining week, and it's not ridiculous for you to suggest that 2, it's a week with the potential to go our way. When people are looking at the run and what might go where, this was one of those weeks that people are going, yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on that one. And that's why I feel more nervous about this than I did about the Champions League semi-final first leg. Put it that way.
Yeah. And also worth saying that all these sides we've mentioned, I've put them in that kind of conversation for Champions League in that 6th spot. But it's really worth mentioning that, I'm not trying to kind of shit on the hopes and ambitions of these sides, but for a lot of them, Europa League, Conference League, if there's 2 Europa spots, a Conference League spot, we're pretty much expected to win those competitions, as in English sides. And they'd be backing themselves to if they get in there, because absolutely, why not? I mean, Forest in a relegation battle, and they've got 1 foot in the final as things stand. So that's for the Europa League. Palace will be thinking they can win their 3rd trophy. We count Community Shields here, in a year. So yeah, I think that's the other side. So we're going to be coming up against some competitive teams. The Premier League is beautifully poised at the moment. A title race, battles for Europe across all of them, like all 3 separate entry points, battles in Europe with the Europa League, the Conference League, and the Champions League, where English clubs are represented, and a relegation battle. The football hasn't been great. PSG and Bayern Munich was that sorbet, that palate cleanser of, wow, actually, this is what we have been missing. But the narratives, the plot threads, listen, I'm a casual when it comes to following European football. I know that Benfica are potentially going to be invincibles in 2nd place. Like, I know that there's other things going on. But right now, like, the Premier League and English football is where a lot of the stories are. And of course, the Champions League, which we are a part of that too. And I think it makes a really compelling end. Now, you touched on Newcastle and, ultimately 3 points, just win. I think for this Fulham game, because it comes straight after Atleti, we're sandwiched in between 2 massive games. And obviously in that sandwich is a little layer of Everton, Man City. Because of that, I actually completely agree with you. If you're offering me a 1-0, I take it now.
Yeah.
But I think, Jack was brilliant. I'm so glad Jack got a lot of love on the podcast last week in the comments, because he was quite hard on Arsenal, Martinelli and Arteta in the football. And I didn't know how people would take that necessarily. We thought he was brilliant. And I'm glad a lot of people in the comments thought so too, because he spoke really openly and honestly and candidly about his team and our team. And what he said about Newcastle, mate, he was absolutely spot on. They were shocking. They were absolutely awful. And I have to be honest, I think they got in a game because we let them in a game. Now, the 11 was strange. They missed Livramento and Gordon, and then they were bringing on Voltemade and Visser and all these players. I'm thinking, hold on, why were these guys not starting? I haven't really been paying too much attention to Newcastle. But when we got that early goal, I thought, this is exactly why. Like, now let's kick on. And we didn't kick on. And even in our shambles of a situation, there were just sort of moments where we just left goals on the pitch, especially the Gyökeres cut through to Saka. And I was saying, if we got a 2-0 and a 3-0, you know, you put 5 goals on the board and 6 points, and you're asking a real question of City. But I think we might have missed that opportunity now. Just get the 3 points, and let's just sort of hope for maybe a bit of a favour. But you know, Jack was right. Newcastle are absolutely there for the taking. They've got 1 win more than being a part of this relegation conversation, if I'm not mistaken. I may as well look at that table again. But it tells you where they are. Now, Fulham aren't there. Fulham are in a conversation for other things. And Arsenal, I think you're right. We just need to focus on getting the 3 points.
And this is where management of the squad really does sort of come into question, right? Everyone always refers to that Villa game that was sandwiched in between, I think, our Bayern tie.
Shiroi, sorry to cut you. Yeah, I said they're 1 win more. They're on 42 points, Newcastle. So if they had 39, you know, if my mother had wheels, she'd be a bike or whatever it is. If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be one of the great TV moments. Then they'd be on 39 points level with Forest, who we are very much saying are part of that conversation. So, yeah, sorry, that was very rude of me, but I just wanted to add that there.
No. Do you remember what I was saying?
No, and everyone's going to kill me in the comments because I do this, and it's really bad of me. I know, but I don't like putting something out there and then not actually telling you if it's true. Yes,
no, you're right. You're right. Squad depth and squad management, right? Everyone talks about that Villa game, which I think was sandwiched in between Bayern. We don't get the points we want. A lot of people say the substitutions were with one eye on the Champions League game that came after, and that ultimately ends up costing you the title, right? That's the most recent example that stings, but I'm sure there are others. And there's been a lot of talk about how players are looking fatigued. I think now you've even got pundits like Cara coming out and saying, I don't actually buy the nerve stuff. I just think your boys look knackered. I think it's fatigue. And when I look at the way that we've started games, we have looked good. And I've always been I was sat there with Annie watching this game yesterday. And obviously Simeone gets into them at halftime and it's going to change. But there was a point where I was just sat there going, oh no, but we're actually not competing in duels for a while. That game, the substitutes helped in my opinion, but that game, for all the boxing fans out there, you'll see this sometimes where a boxer looks really good for the first 5 or 6, but sometimes they take a round off. They take rounds 7 and 8 off and they look a bit shit and you think they're done, but then 9, 10, 11, and 12, they come out and they were good to take that round off or those 2 rounds off. And I feel like you can't really get away with that in football. And sometimes you can't get away with it in boxing. And there was a worry that yesterday we took a round off and that's when they get the goal. They could have even got the second. I don't know what the XG would have been on that Lookman chance, but I imagine it was quite high. That's where I think squad management is going to be so crucial right now. Because I'm torn. I'm sort of sat there going, you need 3 points, and 3 points is not a given in the Premier League. So you absolutely have to start your best 11. And I'm sat there going, but you don't have a better chance of getting to a Champions League final. I can't think of one. And in a final, you give us a puncher's chance. If some people give us more, but you'd certainly give us at the minimum. So you have to go hell for leather in that one too, right? So I'm sat there thinking, am I now just going to be that contradictory bastard where I'm talking about you haven't used the squad well enough, your players are knackered, but I'll still be upset if I don't see the 11 that I want in both games? How does that jeopardize things going forward? There's so much for a manager to consider. I think there are this is going to sound stupid, and it might be stupid, I don't know. I think that certain key players coming back from injury now will actually benefit Arteta in a way because you'd hope that they're fresh. So you're looking at Bukayo Saka, for example, you'd hope that he's fresh. Even someone like Calafiori, you'd hope that he's fresh. The way that we've been managing Eze and Odegaard's minutes, you would hope that they're fresh, right? And I think that if they can do their bit, then maybe you can have that slightly more reserved role for Rice and Zubimendi that you were discussing, where you protect their legs just a little bit, but you still can pop the ball around and you still have some attacking threat. But I'll definitely have my eye on that, because the more that I see our players get tired and take rounds off in game, the less confident I am that we can crawl over the line, as some people like to put it. Because I think even to crawl over the line when you're at this stage of the season, you can't be flat out. You can be slightly more tired and slightly less energetic than you were at the start of the season, but you can't be flat out. And there have been in-game periods where I've looked at these boys and gone, there's nothing in them. There's nothing in them. That's actually what frightens me the most at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, you can have moments where you don't look quite at your best, but you need to have principles and a platform to fall back on. like being able to just defend your box really well. I think weirdly, Arsenal probably, because it was such a mess of an attacking performance, I don't think we got as much credit as we probably deserved defensively. Like, I know the Wissa chance was huge, like with 10 minutes to go, but as Turkish said on Loose Cannons, it's magic from Voltamada. It's a brilliant, unbelievable pass. And actually, did they really do much else? People go, well, Osula slipped, he was in. Yeah, okay, but he takes a touch, and I promise you Saliba might get there. It's all these things. And I actually thought defensively, we've been a lot more like ourselves recently, which is good to see. But yeah, if the attacking football's not going to be there, we need to at least know that, like clean sheet against Sporting, clean sheet against Newcastle, City. Okay, they scored 2 goals, but listen, we gave them a good game. 1-1 against Atletico away from home. We don't look like we're going to go beat teams, but also it's looking like teams are finding it quite difficult to beat us. And that wasn't the case when Bournemouth just walked through us and it looked super easy. City in that second half 2-0 looked super easy. So yeah, we've definitely taken a step back towards that resilience, but there's still a bit of work to do there. Let's talk about the 11s and get some predictions in then. You mentioned squad rotation. I think there's a clever way of doing it in which you're still getting Arteta's trusted soldiers out there. So can I give you my 2 11s for this game and then Atleti following, if everything kind of goes perfectly, right? By the way, am I still coming through? Has the internet been all right? Are we
coming through clear? The reason I was nodding is because there's one position I really want to hear. I really want to hear what you're going to do with this position. I'll tell you what it is afterwards, but go on.
Right, I'll speed through it. I mean, obviously Raya starts both games. I'm giving Ben White one last chance, if I'm honest. But I thought he was. Did you see my match reaction where I said he was really lazy in the way he defended that shot that led to the penalty?
I watch all your content like pretty much immediately when it comes out. Has there ever been a video that I haven't referenced of yours? I told you, mate. I was a fan before I ended up sitting on a camera with you.
Everyone watching and listening, be a Sharoy and watch my content and like and subscribe. No, it's very kind of you, man. What did you think of my assessment of Ben White's defending on that one?
I heard it, and then I also watched, I think it was on CBS, Mika and Kara were talking about it from a defender's point of view. I know what you're saying in terms of, if you look at Gabriel, his hands are always behind his back, but in the context of a scuffed shot, when his entire body is moving one way, your body can't move that way with your hands behind your back, right? That's just the way in which he's moving. So it's not, I think when Gabriel has his hands behind his back in general terms, it's because he's setting up for a block. I don't think Ben White was setting up for a block because no one thought the ball was going there. Like, he didn't think he was the one that was going to be tasked with that, So I'm perhaps slightly more forgiving than you.
Yeah.
Having said that, there are a lot of people that will say it doesn't matter when you see someone who's about to pull the trigger and you're in the box, mate, and you know what it's like in Europe. You put your hands behind your back, end of. So that's me sitting on the fence, really. I'm perhaps slightly more sympathetic with Ben White than you were on that one.
These things happen so unbelievably quickly. The ball comes in, he's looking over, and before he knows the shot's been taken. I'm not saying it's kind of easy in slow motion replay. A little bit like with the Eze penalty. For me, to say he brought contact when this stuff happens so quickly. I know we need to kind of give more leeway to players with that. I just felt that Gabriel was able to, balls coming over, set himself and say, I'm facing this, and my arms are behind my back and I'm fronting it. Whereas he just looked, I appreciate it was scuffed and it took a deflection, but I just think it's 101, hands behind the back, set yourself. And you know what, if you can't get the block on and you have to lean, well, the ball's probably going wide anyway. So anyway, but again, we all know this with the benefit of hindsight. I think it was slightly lazy defending, but you are right. I would give it one last chance because I've seen enough years of a very good Ben White to say that we should just chip away at it. And we are playing at home to Fulham, but if we were playing away to City, then I'd be saying, yeah, start Mosquera. But I'd go, and then Fulham are good. They've got some very technical, talented players. I'd give Ben White one more go. I actually don't think Arteta will, I think he'll play Mosquera.
I think he'll play Mosquera both games.
I think he might be done with Ben White's form.
I think
he might have just said, listen, mate, you can't keep doing this. I would go, okay, I said I'd go through it quickly, lol. Fulham at home. I'd go Raya in goal. I'd go White, Saliba, Gabriel, Nkapie. I'd go Rice in the 6 again, Zuberman in the 8, Erdegaard with him too. And then I'd go Eze, Gyökeres, and Madueke. That would be my team. And if all goes well, I would, well, a couple of things. If Calafiori's fit to start, I'd start him over Nketiah if he's fit to start. But otherwise, I would give him, Saka, and Timber if he's able to make the squad. I would really prioritize getting them minutes. Now, Martinelli, this is crazy because I've been quite critical of him all season. I really want him to start that Atletico game. For two reasons. Firstly, Erdegaard's not doing enough for me, so I'd move Eze to the 10. Secondly, Trossard's been a shambles, so I would start Martin on the left. And also, I do want his work rate. I think he understands, like, big game, big night, what it takes on and off the ball. On the ball, we want more quality, but he has delivered in big nights on the ball. He scored against Atleti. He scored against Bayern earlier this season. He has scored at the Bernabeu. He has delivered on big.
Havertz. He set up Havertz in what I think, if my memory serves me correctly, the only goal that got us here in the first place in that tie. He's the one that pinged against, was it Sporting, right, at their gap?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah. But he does that from the bench. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So that, then come Atletico, I'd go Nketiah, Mosquera, I'd go Saka on the right, I'd go Eze in the 10, I'd go Martinelli on the left, and Gyökeres again, because Kai Havertz, we just don't know anything of him right now. So slight tweaks in 11s. If Rice can come off for Norgard, because we're 2-0 up with 20 minutes to go, then I would do that. But, you could argue that Miles should start in midfield over Zubimendi, but I just don't think we've seen that enough for me to say, yeah, we are still fighting, tooth and nail for the Premier League. Anything you'd do differently?
I don't disagree with any of that, and I don't want to bore the viewers with me going through my 11 for those two. I think there are two things that I do want to touch on. I remember, I think it was the Newcastle game where you were discussing why Trossard didn't play, and you said, well, that indicates to me that Trossard's going to play midweek, and he didn't. And his cameo showed exactly why. I know that a lot of people are saying Trossard's pissing them off. I think the manager's done with him. Personally, I don't think he's going to trust him anymore. We've seen him berating Trossard quite a bit now, and that cameo didn't do him any favors either. I think
you're right. I forgot about that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, so that was really telling for me. And one thing that I hear the manager talk about a lot is we need to when he talks about Eze in particular, he says, well, we know what you can do. We need to get him into those positions. And I think the set piece routine against Newcastle was a prime example of that. That wasn't orchestrated for just anyone. It was organized. If you look at the two that are at the edge of the box, it's Eze and Rice, two of our better long range strikers. What's the position where you get Eze, who's arguably the best finisher in terms of form at the moment? What's the position where you get him closest to the box? In my opinion, I'd love to see him in a false 9. It's not going to happen. But when you don't trust Jesus and Havertz is injured, and we talk about how we want a bit more creativity and a bit more guile in the box, just think about it now. You're talking about the platform of Zubimendi and Rice, and you're saying that you're perfectly happy to start Martinelli on the left. I mean, if you had Martinelli on the left, if you had Saka on the right, if you had Erdegaard in the 10, and you had Eze in front of him, so I look at that and I think we're a completely different proposition. In the same way that a lot of people said that Havertz could change it from playing in that position when they're talking about Gyökeres, I see absolutely no reason as to why Eze can't. That potency closer to goal, it's just a bit too late in the season to see it. Maybe, I don't know if it's in Arteta's thoughts. I don't know if it's in his playbook, but that is the attack that excites me the most based upon what's available at the moment. And actually, that would still be the attack that excites me the most, even if everyone was available. I still want to see that. I think that, how people are saying you're not just going to suddenly go from the way that you're playing to something else. I personally think that's the only way that we suddenly can do a goal difference job on teams, and that could transform the way in which we attack.
Oh, sure, I'm flying the flag for Saka false 9 and recall one area, which can't happen, and go for dual 10s, and trust me, I want to see a complete flipping of the script. I've just sort of given up on seeing it, and that's why I said in summer we've got to raise our standards and all that. But we'll see. Right now it's making do with what we got, but it'll be really interesting to see what it goes with. We'll round up quick fire predictions then. Arsenal Fulham
2-0.
Everton Man City.
I'll give you a Hopium 1-1-1.
And Arsenal Atletico.
2-1 Arsenal after extra time.
Wow. So you think we're getting the dream week?
The Arsenal predictions I gave you were what I actually think. The City one wasn't what I actually think.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I think I think I said 1-0 on loose cannons, 2-0, sorry, 1-0, 2-1, something like that against Fulham. I think we will do it against Atletico, make the Champions League final, which is crazy. I think I had us as going out the semi-final, but I was quite encouraged by that performance, and that's two Atleti performances this season I've been encouraged by. There's two ways to look at that: either they react and they learn for the third one, or we've got something on them. So let's see. And then the Everton City game, I think it'll be hard work, but I just think City will win that.
Yeah.
1-0, 2-1 again, something like that. So yeah, fascinating couple of days, and fascinating, season defining week for Arsenal.
God knows what it all looks like the next time that we speak, man. God knows what it all looks like.
This is the biggest leap in terms of from one podcast to another, like how much everything could have changed. We might draw against Fulham, see City win, and get knocked out of the Champions League, and the season is done. This is a massive week for Arsenal. Everyone do join us next week. We will still be bringing out a podcast, even though, of course, I am. I'm in Australia, but I actually think I leave that day that we're recording, so we'll be able to record it, and then bless up Max, who's working so hard in the background. He'll manage to make sure we get this out, so you will hear from us. Sure, I'll leave it there. Remember, everyone, go check out NordVPN. Absolutely fantastic. You can try it now. It's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you go to nordvpn.com/Goonerverse, you go and get yourself 4 months extra on a 2-year plan. Troy, big thanks. We'll end it there. Catch you in a bit, my friend.
Love.